Hey everyone, this is another recording of the Polite Society podcast presented by the Second Amendment Foundation. We're going to get going here in just a second. I've got to get everything connected up as far as social, and that is complete. So just to let you know, we've got Joe Eaton coming up that we're going to be interviewing him. Your team tonight, Amanda Suffolcool. She's got something, I think she might have something during the personal news segment to talk about. She's also the lady behind, or one of the people behind Eye on the Target Radio. We have Carrie Ann Auclair, who's with Sisters in Arms, A Firearm Story is her show. And of course, John Richardson with the Only Guns and Money blog is going to be your team tonight. We're going to be recording here in just a second as I get everything hooked up here. And let me move this one down there. Okay. And one more thing and I'll be ready to fly. We are already getting check-ins from YouTube. Krabby Turtle is checking in. And thank you, Bud, for checking in. We'll be... I'm sure getting more check-ins in the next few minutes, but I'm just resizing everything so that Todd got it. I'm resizing everything so I can fit it in and everything into one screen, so when I'm looking for comments, I don't look all the way over there and look like I'm not paying attention. So, all right, I believe we are ready to start if my team is ready to go.
Yep.
I'm good.
All right. In that case, Masada Ayub in 5, 4, 3.
Hey gang, this is Masada Ayub from the Pro Arms Podcast. I'm here to remind you that our podcast is a member of the Self-Defense Radio Network, and I'm going to suggest you do what we do and check out the other podcasts at selfdefenseradio.net.
Treat every firearm as if it's loaded.
Never point a firearm at anything you're not willing to kill or destroy.
Keep your finger off the trigger until you are on target and ready to fire.
Always be sure of your target and what lies beyond it.
Hi, and welcome to the Second Amendment Foundation's Polite Society podcast. We're recording this one on Monday, April the 3rd, 2023. I'm Paul Lathrop.
I'm Amanda Suffolcool, and on tonight's show, we're going to talk to Joe Eaton. I keep changing his name. To Joe Eaton about the FASTER program.
I'm John Richardson, and we'll talk about Florida becoming the 26th state with permitless concealed carry.
And I'm Carrie Ann Auclair, and in our DGUs segment, we have a defense of gun use in New York City. So climb aboard.
Strap in.
And hang on.
Episode 656 of the Second Amendment Foundation's Polite Society podcast starts right now. All right, welcome back. It is Monday, 6 p.m. in the Central Time Zone, the only time zone that matters, despite the fact that I don't have any allies with me tonight. Time for the Polite Society podcast. This is the personal news segment where we let everybody know what's been going on in the past week or since the last time each of us has been on the Polite Society podcast. I'm going to start with the lady to my right on the screen, and that's Amanda Suffolcool. Amanda, is there anything at all that's happened with you that in the last, week that might be firearms related?
It's not pretty when I do the happy dance, but there you go. So no, I did. On Friday I got the nod for the board of directors of the NRA, and so it's been amazing. I've been fielding congratulations and phone calls from so many people who supported me, and I am so grateful. It really is a great feeling. Though I feel really bad for our friend Rick Ector, who just did not make the cut line, and I'm sad that I'm going to be on the board and Rick will I'm trying to get him to run again for next year. So in addition to the NRA calls, I've been spending a lot of time putting up drywall. And then I don't know if you've heard the storms that have rolled through Ohio. So I have been a little anti-independent here because we've lost electricity twice, once for 42 hours and once for 36 hours. And so me and my chainsaw have been out cutting down the trees that are blocking my driveway, and it's just been an adventure, we'll just say. So John, what about you?
Well, I've been getting ready to head to Indy the week after next for the NRA annual meeting. Been writing a lot as North Carolina finally, after 104 years, dumped our pistol purchase permit. And I'm also finding it not easy to remove strip screws from a scope mount, but I think I finally got all the tools to do it. And finally, I want to give you my congratulations on winning a seat on the board.
Yeah, I'm just happy.
Good.
That's awesome. That's
All right.
so awesome.
Carrie Ann, anything up? It's been a few weeks since we've seen you.
I
Anything up
know.
with you that's new?
It's been really, really busy. So I just actually this past weekend I had a fashion show. So it was a 2A fashion expo that I was helping out GOAL, so Gun Owners Action League, and the DC project was there. And I have to say it was very, very successful. We had about 115 people there, and so it's been pretty busy. We've also been doing a lot of stuff in Massachusetts, and I've gotten like 18 delegates so far in the past week. So for the DC project, so I'm really excited. Been busy.
When she says she's
So-
helping out with the fashion show, she and Renee were the producers of the fashion show. There's no helping out. They were chief cook and bottle washer. They were it all. So the pictures looked amazing. I so wish I was in the audience watching you guys be so successful.
Oh, it was great. And Amanda, congratulations. I'm so stoked for you. That's awesome. Very excited.
Thank you.
That leaves Susan and I. We have been doing a lot of prep for GRPC, which is not for 6 months, but the prep started a month ago, including we went through and spent several hours just cataloging and help me out here. We were doing an inventory of all of our equipment that goes to GRPC.
I have never seen so many flipping cables in my life. You got quarter-inch cable and half-inch cables and quarter-inch to half-inch cables and HDMI and there's a bunch of them.
Yeah.
You know, some people leave home with one gun and come back with 2. Paul leaves home with 1 cable and comes back with 10.
Yes.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Guitar
We have
Center is
4
your friend.
No, it's not.
Not mine.
No. We have 4 totes that we went through and inventoried everything, including what cables we have, how many we have, what lengths we have, so we can start getting all that, figure out which ones we need to buy still, which ones we need to replace. Did all that. We're apparently this year we're going to be doing things differently. We're shipping the equipment and flying. So that's our that's a change from our usual place. We usually pack the RAV4 full of stuff and drive, and there's usually enough room for me and Paul, and that's about it.
Yeah. We fold the back seat down and the cargo area is completely floor to ceiling filled with equipment and munchies and other things. And this year we got talked into really foregoing the driving and flying down and shipping the equipment separately. We also found right now the studio's in 4 totes, not including what I'm using at the moment and when I do the bullet and when I do Amanda's Eye on the target radio. That all yet needs to be cataloged, and we need 2 more totes because we got to pack that stuff up and ship the biggest part of it. I'll still keep a minimal studio here the week before we do GRPC.
Oh,
but
you forgot the best part. The night before we fly out, we have to break down the little studio and pack it in our suitcases and haul that on the plane with us so we can do AmCon.
Yes. So it's planning for GRPC is already underway. The preparation is already underway. And tomorrow night is the first conference call for planning for AmCon. So looking forward to that as well. Mainly because, and open secret, Amanda's a big part. She's on the planning committee. She's a big part of planning for AmCon and pulling AmCon off. We get to work with her. We get to work with Charlie Cook. We get to work with
Cheryl Todd,
Buddha Reamer. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And just a lot of friends get together to put this together. And I'm really looking forward to that. So. Well, that's going to do it for us for the personal news segment. We're going to go ahead and step aside to our first break after I find the right button and tell everybody about the Self-Defense Radio Network, all your pro-freedom podcasts in one place. As you can see, we're up there in the top left. Rob Morris's Self-Defense Gun Stories is there. Survival and Basic Badassery is there. Amanda's Eye on the Target Radio is there. A lot of really cool shows on the network. You can listen right off the website, or the subscription information is there if you want to subscribe to any of the shows. Go check it out at sdrn.us. We are going to step aside for our first break. When we come back, we've got our interview with Joe Eaton. Joe is with the Faster Saves Lives program, and we'll talk with him about that and about arming school staff. Everybody says teachers. It's not just teachers. It's if you work in a school, that's the program for you. Hold on, everybody. We're going to be gone for about a minute. We'll be right back with Joe Eaton right after we hear from ACLDN.
This portion of the Polite Society podcast is brought to you by the Armed Citizens Legal Defense Network. If you carry a defensive handgun, you need protection from the aftermath of prosecution. Even if you do everything right, you can be the victim of an overzealous prosecutor or even be falsely accused. That is where the ACLDN comes in. They provide immediate assistance when you need it most. If you find yourself under arrest, they immediately pay bail money and the retainer for your attorney. Additional funds are available for trial and civil proceedings. Beyond the money, they have far and away the best team in the industry, providing you invaluable information and training DVDs that are included with your membership and who stand ready to work with your lawyer on your defense. People like Masad Ayub, John Farnham, James Fleming, Tom Gibbons, Emmanuel Capelson, Dennis Tuller, and led by Network President Marty Hayes. Initial membership is only $135 for your first year, and you get 8 incredible training DVDs and other educational material when you join. If you don't have tens of thousands of dollars to defend yourself at your disposal right now, you need to be a member of the ACLDN. Go to armedcitizensnetwork.org and become a member today. And please mention that you heard about them on the Polite Society podcast.
All right, we are back, and well, my software is a little bit frozen. Let me hit that button one more time. Maybe everything will come back correctly. There it goes. We have Joe Eaton with us. This is, of course, the interview segment of the Polite Society podcast presented by the Second Amendment Foundation. Joe Eaton is with us. Joe is with the Faster Saves Lives program. Joe, what I want to start with is Faster Saves Lives. How long has Faster been in existence?
Well, thanks for having us on tonight, Paul. We started the Faster Saves Lives program back in 2012, directly after the killings at Sandy Hook Elementary School. Took us a little while to run our first class. We spun it up in the spring of 2013 and have been at it for the past 10 years since then. That amount of time, we've managed to train over 3,000 school staff. Again, like you said, it's not teachers. It is any school staff that has the right heart set and the right mindset to keep the kids safe. From about 300 schools across 22 different states now.
Very cool. Let me get a couple more questions, then I'm going to turn it over to my staff. 22 different states. I'm not... I need to tie this in a little bit because, honestly, the reason that we were so intent on getting you on so soon is that last Monday the Nashville incident, the Nashville killings happened, And is Tennessee one of the states that allows staff in school if they are qualified to carry?
Yeah, according to our research, Tennessee law does allow schools to authorize the carry of firearms by school staff or by others in there. In fact, we had a school administrator from Tennessee up several years ago. He actually did his doctoral thesis on this and was a school administrator outside of Nashville. Spoke to him shortly after the killings last week to find out if he had ever worked directly with this school and church, because I know he was very vocal in the area. He said he had not had any contact with this school at the time, unfortunately, but looking at what has came out after this horrific event, the school did a lot of things right.
Very cool. Got comments coming in. Let me get this was going to be my next question. We've already got a somebody that's watching us live that's on top of this, and I was going to ask what FASTER stands for, but Gun Websites already said FASTER stands for Faculty and Administrator Safety Training and Emergency Response, and he lists your website there. Thank you for that, Gun Websites. That's of course over on the YouTube side. Joe, what does a FASTER class look like? How long does it take? And are there any prerequisites for a facility member to have before they come to your training?
The laws may differ state by state, but generally we find the majority of states simply leave it up to the school districts. The local control is very important to decide what level of training and qualification the staff will have. So our first level 1 class is a 3.5 day. It's about 28 hours of firearms, general crisis, emergency management type of training, and most importantly, trauma medical training also. Prior to attending at level 1, the staff have to have their concealed handgun license from the state where the school is. That meets the federal law requirements. And if that's the only training they have, we do have a 1-day FASTER Foundations class, which gets them to a base skill level. A lot of concealed carry classes, they've come out never having drawn from a holster, never having shot single hand or offhand. So having them at a base foundational level of your general gear and firearms handling skills allows the instructors to take the entire classes so much further when we get them for the full 3 days.
All right, very cool. John, I think you're up first in show notes with a question.
Yeah, Joe. Well, first, let me ask you, excuse me, you said that the Covenant School did a lot of things right. Could you go over what they did that was right?
I'm just going off of the body cam and other media reports that are out there. We've been a few days past this now, so I think a lot of the information is starting to get some validity to it. But looking at the skills, the one thing that we tell schools is armed staff is not a be-all, end-all. It is simply one more overlapping layer that the schools need to have in place. And, going back even to when we had the murders at Sandy Hook and even as close as Uvalde, schools are still operating on what was standard back in the 1990s when we had Columbine. We need to have schools look at, the single points of entry, the sign in, the sign out, the automatic locking of doors, the locking of the classroom doors. A lot of schools are carrying that on by monitoring social media, training their staff to look for changes in behavior and personalities. They're setting up tip lines. They're involving the entire communities in keeping the kids safe. And you saw a lot of this in the Nashville where the doors were locked. The killer had to shoot through the glass on the front doors, which, there are ways that can be helped mitigated. I can remember back in school, seemed like every door, it was for theft at the time and break-ins, had the screen mesh in there, but there's a lot of nice polymer type of coatings that they can put on those now. The staff at the school from the body cam video did the most professional and fantastic job. The lady, I don't know if she was an administrator or a teacher that was out front, immediately providing the arriving officers with good information. She was in communication with people in the schools. She was not hysterical. She kept a level mind, provided the information they needed. Kudos to the law enforcement. He walked in, took the information, calm, collected voice. He knew he was there with a purpose. They come to the door. There was another school official right there with a key, master key to the building that they were able to hand off to the law enforcement, and the law enforcement did not hesitate. As soon as they got the keys in hand, they opened the doors up and they went in to solve the problem. And that's how we save lives in these situations. The faster tagline is time is all that matters. And from the time that they entered that building until they had stopped the killing, that was a fantastic job by those responding law enforcement officers.
I want to get one more comment in real quick, and then, we'll go back to you, John, just a second. But why is that happening? That's weird. John disappears when I do that. But anyway, Dana says, rumor has it there might have been a couple armed teachers, but it appears they sheltered in place to protect the students in their classroom. Well, and where I want to go with that is we just really, Joe, don't know if there is a armed teacher in a school. The school's going to do a really they're going to do their best not to let people know if there is one, and if there is, who it is. It's right. Not something they want to get out in the general public.
And that's what we encourage schools. We actually encourage them, if they adopt a program like the Faster Saves Lives, to be public about the adoption of it, because there has to be some certain deterrent effect to some of the criminals out there if they know it is no longer a gun-free zone. But all the details, who it is, where they're at, how many, keep that as part of their safety plan. I did hear the same thing. I did an interview with Spectrum, one of the news channels, Scripps Broadcasting, and she had reported they saw one local newspaper that said there were armed staff in the building. But again, that's something that we teach the staff in the faster class is if they are teachers, their sole responsibility is the children that they have in their direct care and their direct custody. If they have a classroom full of kids, their job is to barricade the room, get the kids to the hard corner, and set up an ambush to protect the kids that are in their direct control. That's their primary and only responsibility. We always talk about armed staff instead of armed teachers because a lot of the people that they look at are administrators or custodial staff or lunch ladies or other people that may not be directly tied down to a specific group of students. And then still at that point, it's up to that individual what they feel is the safest for them and the rest of the kids. Should they, again, choose to go toward the sound of the gunfire, if they can identify where it's at and they have good information, that may be an option. Another option is they may be able to set up an ambush point and evacuate everybody out behind them in the hallways or the wings. They may be able to provide information to the main office who's relaying that information to the police officers. So, there's lots of options in there. The reporter that I was interviewing, again, took the standpoint that, well, if there was armed staff in the building and they still shot 6 people, doesn't that prove armed staff is a failure? And that's simply not the truth. The school staff was very adamant. They had the schools locked down. They had all of the kids accounted for except for 2, which I don't know the size of this district, but looking at the school building, I know it was a church attached also, looked to be a fairly large building, and the fact that they had them locked down, had that count in place, they had communications on where they were last seen, fantastic job by the school.
John, did you have a follow-up question you wanted?
I did. My younger daughter's an elementary school teacher, and she's, of course, been following this, and she said she would not feel comfortable carrying a firearm. What would you say to a teacher like that?
We hear that a lot all the time. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. The Faster Saves Lives program is not a program for everyone, and even a lot of the people that sign up for it will self-select out once they see everything that's involved in this. But again, the one thing I can say with 100% certainty is in every school building in these United States, there's at least one staff member who, no matter what your policy says, no matter what you've trained them, no matter what you've threatened them with punishment, if somebody starts hurting the kids, they're going to go willingly stand between somebody with a rifle and these kids. And those are the ones that you need to talk to and find out what they're comfortable with. Some of them will say the same thing. I want nothing to change. I want everything exactly how it is, and that's fine. Some of them may say, well, I want the trauma medical training so I have the skills and the tools to help out not only in violence events, but in severe weather, sports, kitchen lab, bus accidents. In the 10 years, we've had 5 reports of use of our trauma medical care, and 2 of those have been lives saved with tourniquet applications. But you're also going to find a certain number of them that say, hey, I want every chance at going home to my family at the end of the night. Let me have access to the best tools and the best training so that I can live for the kids instead of dying for the kids. And if there's a chance I can make the situation better while we're waiting on outside help to get there, I want the tools and training to do that. And, if staff are going to step up and basically sacrifice the last few minutes of their lives to buy these kids a few more seconds of life, as a community, a nation, as good moral people, we owe it to those staff member to say, what are you comfortable with, and how can we help you get home at the end of the night also?
Absolutely. Carrie Ann, you got a question in the show notes you wanted to ask.
Yes, so I live in Massachusetts, and I do the National Train a Teacher once a year, and I get a lot of pushback here in Massachusetts, and I'm wondering how can Massachusetts get your program here, because it seems like it's not something that like Massachusetts not willing to accept a program like that, and it's unfortunate.
We hear a lot of this all the time. If there was one simple way, and I'm looking now to see what our research said on Massachusetts. Actually, Massachusetts does allow schools to authorize armed staff. So there is a way right now for schools to do it, to bring it in there. Again, our research was done sometime last year. Laws may have changed. They need opinions from their own lawyers at their teams, but our research showed, and then I'll send you the site to the section of the code so you can look at it yourself. But, a lot of them are still going to be hesitant on that. So, walk into it the easy way with the trauma medical training. And, that's something a lot of people want. All the staff are trained in CPR. We've seen lives saved already with the trauma medical training. And, you can sometimes fool them into realizing how important this is. We did a conference with the Association of Superintendents here in Ohio. We did an hour breakout session with about a dozen superintendents. We went through quickly how to apply tourniquets, compression bandages, chest seals, which are the main things that we cover. And at the end of it, we had an exercise, arterial bleed from the left arm. What would you do? They're slapping tourniquets on, they're tightening them down. They're getting close to the 30-second time frame we want them at. They're high-fiving each other and thinking, they're doing good. And the last statement that our foundation president, Jim Irvine, made was, he looked at them all and he said, all right, now we've got to go to the next room because nobody has stopped the killing. And you could watch the air go out of every administrator in that building when they realized, my God, this new neat skill I had does no good if they're still putting bodies on the ground. And sometimes that's a soft way into it. Get them in with the trauma medical training. The Stop the Bleed is a national program that's very good if you find the right instructors for it. But sometimes it can help them open their eyes to realize, I'm responsible during every emergency, not just during the emergencies I want to pick and choose to prepare for.
Let me get another comment in here real quick. This one, again, John disappears, Charlie's, and this is from Charlie. The comment is from Charlie. Whoever is in charge of security at schools in Massachusetts, he says, can give written permission for someone to carry a firearm. So there is that. We're down at the bottom of the hour. Joe, can I have you hang on with us for one more segment, man?
Certainly.
We're gonna hear from the Complete Combatant folks. We'll be right back with more with Joe Eaton and the Faster Saves Live programs right after this.
This portion of the Polite Society podcast is brought to you by The Complete Combatant. The Complete Combatant is designed for a broad base of citizens that range from students that don't own a gun on up to advanced students that train often. The Complete Combatant offers several different courses that build upon each other, from avoidance, using verbal commands, and preparing for contact, lethal versus non-lethal decisions, your 911 call, interacting with the police, to even dealing with the legal system in the aftermath. The Complete Combatant courses are a layered approach for all levels of experience that will walk you through all the many stages of decisions while developing a game plan tailored to your skills and your everyday carry. Please visit www.thecompletecombatant.com and make sure you mention this ad to receive 15% off. Again, that's www.thecompletecombatant.com and mention the ad for 15% off.
All right, we are back. We continue the interview segment with Joe Eaton from the Pastor Saves Lives program. And Amanda, you've been through this FASTER training. You've got a question up in show notes. What you got?
Yeah, well, first I want to say, Joe, I went to school with Joe Easton, so forgive me if I do that to your name. It just is set there. I'm sorry. So, Joe Eaton, yes, indeed, I did go through the FASTER program, and they're generous enough that if there's open seats when they're holding a class, that they'll allow media to kind of come in and see it. And there was so many things that I got out of that class. One, how superior the class was, and just how much heart those teachers and administrators and the lunch lady was, how much heart that they had, and the fact that they were willing to do anything for their kids. But Joe, can you talk a little bit about the stuff that FASTER does for the teachers or for the administrators, for their classes, for stress inoculation? Because when I did the scenario shooting that I did, on day 2, day 3, whatever that was, it was so, when I watched the videos of Nashville, it was like you put us exactly there. And so talk to us about that a little bit.
Yeah, part of the 3 days that we do have is we spend a good portion of the third day doing force-on-force scenario-based training with the school staff. And we run them through different scenarios with specific teaching points we want them to get out of each one. We've seen this all before. If you have a hammer, everything's a nail, and it is really hard after 3 days of hard-charging training to get the staff to slow back down and realize this is just one more layer. So there's an equal number of no-shoot situations as there are shoot situations, which can and sometimes are even more stressful than the ones where it's clearly defined that you've got to stop the killer. But we do that because they need to start seeing how their bodies themselves react under stressful situations, and you need to start inoculating themselves against that. And by letting them, we can tell them one thing, that when the adrenaline kicks in, you're going to develop tunnel vision, you're going to have audio exclusion, you're going to lose the fine dexterity. But, until you actually have them experience that, and then more importantly, when they experience it and relate it back to them and give them techniques to mitigate the problems of that, it becomes very powerful. Because even by the time we get to the third day, we'll have a lot of staff that you can tell they're still not sure, is this going to work? Am I going to be able to safely do this? Heaven forbid, am I going to make it worse by having a firearm in the school? And it's really gratifying on the third day when you start seeing that light bulb come on in their heads, when they suddenly realize if they implement the tactics and the training that we have spent 3 days giving them, if they calm down and process the information that's available to them, they can make the situation better. And that's very empowering for the staff. And it's good because then they get to see that, they are no longer helpless. And I always relate that it was so aggravating with me when I started talking to schools about this 10 years ago. They would prepare for every other emergency out there except for violence. And their only plan there was wait for outside help. And I would ask them, you guys would be 100% negligent if you wrote your policy that said, if a kid falls in a swimming pool, I'm going to stand on the side of the pool, dial 911, and wait for the ambulance to get there. No, if you have that emergency, you're going to jump in the pool, you're going to pull the kid out. Everyone's trained in CPR. And when the professionals get there, you hand them a patient instead of a victim. And violence has to be the same way. The stress inoculation is a good way about it. I relate, it was this last year. We had a guy did very well on this. And Amanda can tell you the managing of the shoot, no shoot, solving the situation is the easy part. You have to manage the crowds. You have to manage the chaos. You have to start managing the medical supplies. You have to start providing aid. You have to prepare for the arrival of the law enforcement. You have to notify the rest of the administration so that they can start through theirs. And this is all part of the scenarios that we run them through. And one gentleman did very well. He had solved the situation, very amped up during it, and you started watching his stress level come down and down as he was directing people to start medical care. And he suddenly looked at his feet, and there was an injured person laying at his feet. And he simply looked at me and said, where did this guy come from? He had been laying at his feet for about 2 minutes, but he had such tunnel vision focused on where the problem was, he'd not even seen a full-size adult. And afterwards, he told me, he said, it was like the best magic trick I'd ever seen in my life. There was nothing there. All of a sudden, there was a full-size human. The really neat part was I watched him in the subsequent scenarios that he ran. As soon as his stress level would start going up, he would start looking around to break that tunnel vision and make sure he wasn't missing anything. Failing like that in training is where we want them to make mistakes. And doing something quote-unquote wrong, it wasn't wrong because he had never experienced that before, but then more importantly, make sure that that never happens again is so important to these school staff, and they really put their heart and their minds and every bit of effort they can into it.
I'll tell you.
Go ahead, Amanda.
One of the hardest things, Joe, that I found in doing the Force on Force stuff was actually listening, trying to actively listen for what's going on over my own breath. And so that because you are so, well, one, you're running, two, everything is tight on you. And then, so if you've got the stomach for it, and if you've watched the police video in Nashville, go back and watch it again and just listen to their directions and then listen to their breathing. So they're trying to hear over their own breathing, and there's just so much to this that it's amazing what the training has to teach you and all the aspects of it as you're absorbing it into your system.
Yeah, the police officers did a perfect job, and a lot of what we see through the training and through our Force on Force, you could see in their responding videos. The officer came in very calm and collected. His voice pitch was still normal. It wasn't high like you usually get when they're adrenaline. He did listen to what the staff members were telling him, because we'll do that in many of the scenarios. If there are other people around or people escaping the danger in our scenarios, we give them very specific things. Say this as you run past the responder. Tell them this. And 90% of the time we'll ask the responder, what were the people saying to you as they ran past you in the hallway? And they're like, it was just like in Peanuts, the teacher, wah, 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 wah. It is really amazing that you have to make your body listen, that stress can make your ears quit working. And until you experience that, people will think that you're lying to them when you tell them that you have to consciously tell your ears to listen in these stressful situations. Police did a great job. They went in not knowing where the problem was. They had open classrooms. They did a very quick job of clearing those without spending an exceptional amount of time looking for it. But as soon as they had any stimulus that told them where the killing was, they left everything else and went off at a pace where they could process the information as they came upon it time after time. They did a great job of moving the people with the low-power variable optics and the rifles forward where they had the most firepower, where it needed to be. Great communications between all of them. But, once they had a goal in mind, they moved with a purpose, they solved the problem, and they ended up doing the best that we could hope for in that situation.
what I would like to do real quickly is differentiate between armed staff and police. Anybody who is currently a school staff member, if they go through the FASTER program, they will not be doing the room clearing that the police did, that we've seen in the video that was released from the Nashville Police Department from that incident. That you don't train to that level. You do something entirely differently than room clearing at that level, right?
That's right, and that's what's really hard for our solo officers that may come in as SROs or other ones, because a lot of them train as a team with other officers, such as we saw in Nashville, and it is really hard for them, even if they have stimulus of bodies laying on the ground or shell casings or even shots being fired further down the hallway, to leave open and uncleared areas behind them, because in law enforcement, they're generally looking for criminals that are hiding, trying to not be found, instead of people that are actively looking for people to kill. And it's tough for the law enforcement when they're there by themselves to sometimes flip that switch and realize, yes, I know it's dangerous leaving these empty rooms behind me, but I have indication that I'm needed up there. And that's just all part of the training and why we encourage schools. If you have SROs, or even in our level 3 programs, we go into the school district, the schools are required to bring in their local police, their local EMTs, and we train the entire community on keeping the kids safe. And it's really gratifying to watch, Forrest Stonewall, the lead trainer down at Tactical Defense Institute, one of the 2 facilities we use here in Ohio, described it perfectly. He said, every time we do one of these classes, it's like a junior high dance. In the morning, you got the cops on this side and you got the teachers on this side of the classroom, and you have to do everything you can to get them on the dance floor together. And then by the end of the day, it's neat to see a fully kitted up officer going down the hallway with, a small kindergarten teacher covering his 6 and providing him additional support, and the officer trusting him or her with just as much as they would any other partner they're going down the hallway with.
Got a great question that's coming in from our viewers, our live viewers. This one, I got 2 of them I'm going to get to, but the first one from Gun Websites, he wants to know, does the FASTER curriculum change for different types of school or levels of education? In other words, elementary, high school, college. Is the approach different for a kindergarten teacher compared to somebody who's teaching a college course?
That's a great question. And we also, get the question, is this applicable to churches or businesses? And the simple answer is yes. I mean, the truth of the matter is in these situations, most of these, if they can be stopped, will be stopped ahead of time. But it's going to be very unlikely that you're going to have somebody right there when the killer comes into the building and starts killing people. So unfortunately, the killers are probably going to get the first kill and you're already behind the curve. So, the main thing is number 1, we teach them the tactics and the skills to stop the killing as soon as possible, and a firearm's required to do that. And then secondly, stop the dying by having the trauma medical tools and training there. As far as the differences in age, those are really some nuanced things that, we will help the teachers understand. If you have, able-bodied high school or even junior high kids, can you recruit them to, drag the wounded from an area of danger out to an area of safety, to start moving people to other adults or to the first responders as they're getting there? Now, you can never ask a kindergarten or elementary school person to do that, and you would never want to task them with anything except for, here's the hard corner, get in, be quiet, the lights are out, and provide them that comfort that you are looking out for them. But we do cover that, and I'm sure Amanda can tell you that having extra medically trained people in your scenarios makes things a whole lot easier, because last thing you want to do is look around and see dead or injured people on the ground and say, I need some help, and realize that everybody that could help you, you've already sent out of the classroom.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah. I'll tell you, I am probably your biggest fan. I went in inquisitive and I came out 100% a convert, and it's like whatever I can do to help get FASTER going anywhere in the country, I count on me.
And that's what I'll follow back up with some of the earlier questions. And as Carrie had mentioned, if they go to our website, fastersaveslives.org, look under the resources, we've got our research on all 50 states on whether or not they allow this or not. I think I just counted quickly, 35 states allow this in some form or fashion. In fact, 8 of the states allow anybody in the public with a concealed carry license to carry in the schools. So, they can look at that. If they have schools that they want to meet with or talk with, we can do Zoom calls. We can travel there. For the states that need to change their legislation, Jim Irvine is our political wonk. He will work with the legislators to get the laws changed. If they want to talk with other school administrators or if their local police have questions, we'll get them in contact with the trainers and the SROs. We're a resource for anybody that has questions about this, and we're here to help out no matter where they're at or what their state allows. And in fact, it was last year we had a school from North Carolina that does not allow schools to authorize. This school wanted to get ahead of the curve. They sent 6 of their people up here to train with us to get ahead of the curve, and because the law allows them to store their guns in their car in the parking lot, which they said is the next best thing to having them inside the schools. And I applaud schools like that for their forward thinking.
No, I think you were saying, getting ready to ask a question.
Yeah, so I'm actually, I work for the town hall. I work for elections, and I'm also on the school council for my local town. And I have been trying to figure out a way to approach them regarding like getting refused to be a victim in there or something like that. And how would you recommend that I approach it? What's the best way to go about that?
There's 2 things. We joke about this all the time. If you're the only one going in, it's very easy to dismiss you as that crazy gun nut. If you find a second person, unfortunately, they'll look at you like, well, isn't that cute? The crazy gun nut's found a friend. But, if you can find 2 or 3 other like-minded people, that's a committee. That's something that they can't just sweep under the carpet. And it's sometimes as easy as asking the simple questions. Have we looked at this? Have we considered this? What was our decision making? What do we have in place that you can share with me? If you've ever heard Lieutenant Colonel Grossman speak about that, the perfect school is where the parent goes in and starts asking about school safety things, and the secretary says, well, let me call you back and get some information. And about an hour later, you have your local police knocking on that parent's door saying, I hear you have some questions. That shows a school which is taking it seriously, because if that was not a parent and that was somebody doing reconnaissance, having the police out there to meet them and answer their questions puts it in a whole different light, which we saw in Nashville. The reports are already that there were other schools that this killer looked at that had security that they didn't want to deal with.
Wow. One more comment here, and then we're already up to the end of the segment, but I want to get this comment in here. This is from C&T Designs and Arms. From a previous comment that I wasn't able to put on the air, I believe C&T is a teacher. Says, I would pull my students back to a point I can control and be there to defend that point. I'm not going out to look for the shooter. You want to comment on that one, Joe?
Yeah, exactly. That is one of the scenarios, one of the training, paths that we teach them they have to consider. They're either going to, depending on the situation, set up an ambush, or if they choose to, they can be a hunter. And that may change depending on the situations. If they're a physical education teacher that has a class going on, that class is their responsibility. If they're a physical education teacher that is, waiting in between classes, they may make that decision themselves to go toward the sound of gunfire and try and confront the killer, or they may decide that they're going to set up an ambush point on this wing of the building and make sure that everybody behind them in that wing can safely evacuate out of the building. That was the great thing that happened in Nashville, is they took away all of the victims. They had them locked down where that killer could not get to them. The next best thing would have been to have them not even on the campus anymore, have them out, gone someplace else. And that's what these killers are looking for, a concentration of people where they can get these numbers as high as possible. And like I said, the school did a great job by denying them the opportunity to get those large numbers.
All right. And we are actually just a little bit over on our 15-minute segment. But Joe, thank you so much for taking time out of your evening to come and talk to us. And again, if anybody, I would say anybody in the eastern half of the United States is a school staff member and is interested, they should probably get in touch with Faster, the Ohio version. But there is Colorado already set up and running. There is Arizona that is set up and I believe is running. Are there
We
any
regularly
other
run classes. We regularly run classes in Ohio, Indiana, Colorado, and we're just getting them spun up in Arizona. We can take the training anywhere there's demand from schools and funding to make it happen for the schools, because our foundation provides grants for most of the schools, so they don't even have to pay for the training, the hotels, the trauma kits, and anybody that wants to make donations, we're a 501c3, they can make a donation on our website.
Very cool. Again, Joe, thanks so much for taking your time out to talk to us tonight.
Certainly.
All right, folks, we are going to
Thank
step
you.
aside to break. We've got a news segment, and there's a lot going on today specifically and this week. You're going to want to hang out. We've got news stories really from throughout the country. Hang on, everybody. Right back, right after this.
It all failed before. Alcohol prohibition brought us organized crime, and no less alcohol. Drug prohibition brought us murderous, no-knock, wrong house raids.
Police! Search warrant! No, wait! The crack house is next door!
Now gun prohibitionists want laws to lead us down that same path. Don't Americans ever learn? Just ask yourself, isn't government the only beneficiary of police-state policies? Brought to you by Jews for the Preservation of Firearms Ownership. Information available at jpfo.org.
Welcome back to the news segment of the Polite Society podcast presented by the Second Amendment Foundation. I was not aware of this until Amanda started entering in show notes here during the break. But, Amanda, I'm just going to throw straight to you. And there's a little bit of sad news we have to share.
Yeah, I got the notice today that former NRA news member, he was actually he worked with Cam Edwards, but Cameron Gray died this week, and I just wanted to take a moment to say that we lost a great Second Amendment advocate, we lost a great patriot, and the world is a lesser place for losing Cam.
I got to interact with Cameron Gray a little bit at SHOT Show a couple of times. Beyond being a great advocate, beyond being a hardcore Second Amendment guy, he was also a really great person.
He was.
So
you're using the wrong screen, though. You're using the wrong screen.
I am, aren't I? How about I use that screen?
Joe's frozen. Yeah.
Yeah, that one hurts. That one hurts.
Yeah, he was 51 years old.
Oh my God, so young.
Yeah. So it was Cam Edwards and Cameron Gray. The two of them were like the Cam and Cam company.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I got to admit, when I was a truck driver, I listened to Cam every day, and especially when it was Cam and Company on Sirius XM radio. And I would listen to them daily, and Cameron Gray came up with some fantastic interviews from all over the country that aired on Cam and Company, and really enjoyed his stuff. So let me switch over here. And Susan, are we ready to start doing some news?
I don't know, are we?
On my side, I guess we are. Let's go ahead and let's talk Florida a little bit. This is a story written by SAF's Lee Williams.
More than half the country now allows the concealed carry of firearms without the need for a permission slip from the government. Florida became the 26th state, the majority state, Monday morning when Governor Ron DeSantis signed a CS/HB 543 at 8:15 a.m. The new law takes effect July 1st. Quote, "It's a huge step forward for Florida and a monumental step forward for the country," end quote, said Art Tom, State Director of NRA's Institute for Legislative Action. The new law allows law-abiding Floridians to carry concealed handguns without seeking a concealed weapon or firearm license, or CWFL, from the government. However, the state's successful CWFL program will remain in effect. Today, more than 2.4 million Floridians have a CWFL. The new law does not include a training requirement, which was a major concern for its critics. But neither does it change who is eligible to either purchase or carry a firearm. Its proponent says it, quote, levels the playing field for law-abiding Floridians. CS/HB 54 does not allow for the open carry of arms, which is why some said the legislation is not constitutional carry and did not go far enough. The law was supported by NRA, GOA, and Florida Carry, all pro-gun groups which have promised to seek open carry legislation.
All right, John, you're up first in show notes, man.
Yeah, once you add in Florida, now approximately 42% of all Americans, if you look on a population-wise basis, live in a state with permitless concealed carry. And as to those upset about open carry, that open carry was not included, and we all hoped that it would have been, perfect is the enemy of good. Build on what we've just won and go from there, and don't bemoan the fact that we did not get open carry. Amanda?
I've said this on the bullet many, many times. We did not get from 1934 gun laws to today in one shot. They didn't pass everything that's in effect now in 1934. We're not going to get back tomorrow. Take what we've got and work to expand freedom going forward.
Absolutely.
I agree. We were. I had the privilege of being in Tallahassee to testify at both the House and Senate. I have standing in the state of Florida, so I was there to testify. And those who were asking for open carry, they almost got it. I mean, there were people lobbying for it. The governor was asking for it. It just, the timing and the structure wasn't there. So the DC Project gals were there to testify, and they were also asked to come back today for the signing. And so
nice.
So we had, I had an invitation to go to Tallahassee to be there. And it was like, well, I'm in the wrong state this week, so not happening. But it was a really nice ask. And I agree with you guys on the you can't have it all. And so just asking for a little bit, take what you can get, and then go back at it. The next time when you ask for things to fix it, to make it better, it won't be as hard for the legislators, because right now they're going either yes or no. And later it'll be yes and a slight change to yes. But it won't be clear over here to no. And so it makes it much easier for them, and much easier for them to talk to their constituents. And as much as you want to say that your legislators work for you and they need to be elected in order to be able to work for you. Yep. And so they have to care about votes at the same time they care about the thing. So it is kind of a jockeying for position kind of a thing.
One step at a time.
Couple of comments in here from gun websites. First one, he says, it is constitutional carry, in my opinion. Splitting hairs is unnecessary. And we did have a discussion on Saturday on the bullet as to whether we were going to name them number 26 or not. And the general consensus is permitless concealed carry is most of the way there. So yeah, we all agree that they should be named number 26, that just because open carry isn't allowed. And let's be honest about this. I honestly think the majority of gun owners, if they're going to carry a gun in public, do concealed carry, not open carry. So right. No matter what way you cut it, this is a huge win. Gun websites again. Pete says open carry is a war with FUDs, not a war with anti-gun types.
I think he's got a real good point, because it is, they're all it's the principle of the thing. I'm from a state that has open carry, and I can tell you the last time I saw someone open carry, and that was 2 years ago at the fair.
Okay.
So a year and a half ago, I guess, because it was in August. But so if I can remember when, it's that infrequent in a state that allows it.
Well, and even in South Dakota, it's not common. It hasn't been 2 years. It's been less than that. But it's not common. It's not an everyday. Susan, you work in the public. You are in and amongst people all 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. Susan, when was the last time you seen somebody open carry coming into your work?
About 6 months ago.
So yes.
There was one guy that came in about the middle of summer last year. But it would have been about 7 or 8 months ago.
Okay.
So, but I mean, I've worked at this particular store for almost a year, and there's only been the one person that I've seen open carrying. Now, there have been several times that because I conceal carry, I do glance like that, and there have been several that I have seen that have concealed carry, but only one that I've actually seen open carry.
Yeah, is that your gun, or are you just glad to see me?
Exactly. Actually, at my store, is that your gun, or did you shove a can of beer up your sweatshirt?
Okay.
All right, let's. I got two more comments I want to get in. First from George Geller. He says, there we go. Lefty loonies are always happy to get even an incremental win. I'd be happy if I were Florida. I'm going to tell you, George, I'm happy and I'm not Florida.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Do you know the interesting thing about the Florida one was that it is for residents and non-residents.
Yep.
So in most of the constitutional carries are not non-residents.
And one more from gun websites here. We'll move on to our next story. Open carry is like an occasional parade or fancy dress or barbecue thing for most people.
Yep.
The last time I open carried, the last time I open carried was in training.
Yeah.
Before that, I was going out to cover for, doing what I do. I was going out to cover an open carry protest here in South Dakota. So
you were just wearing a costume then. That doesn't even count.
All right. More good news. Two good news in a row. Susan, let's talk about California. Good news about California. Yeah.
That's surprising.
Yeah,
A federal judge in California has issued an order granting a preliminary injunction against enforcement of sections of the state's Unsafe Handgun Act, UHA, while denying a preliminary injunction request against other sections of the law in the Second Amendment Foundation case. However, Chief Judge Dana M. Sabra of the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of California also stayed the ruling pending appeal or further hearing on the matter, whichever occurs first. A telephone conference is scheduled for April 14th, at which time the parties shall advise the court how they wish to proceed. The case, originally filed in late 2020, challenges the requirements of California's UHA, which includes a codified roster of acceptable handguns. The roster limits handgun sales to those models that satisfy numerous testing and safety feature requirements, such as a chamber-loaded indicator, a CLI, and magazine disconnect mechanism, MDM, and microstamping, which plaintiffs say are not required in 47 other states. The requirements have essentially prevented the sale of modern, up-to-date handguns, as no new models have been added to the roster's approved list for more than a decade. Meanwhile, the limited number of handguns now on the list continues to shrink because of the testing and safety feature requirements. Judge Sabra notes in his 30-page ruling that, quote, plaintiffs have shown likely success on their claim that the UHA's CLI, MDM, and microstamping requirements violate their Second Amendment rights, end quote. Today's decisions mark yet another victory for California owners and Californians who wish to purchase modern handguns, said SAF Executive Director Adam Kraut. Importantly, the court determined that California failed to present historically comparable analogs to its requirement that handguns be equipped with loaded chamber indicators, magazine disconnect, safeties, and have the ability to imprint a microstamp on fired casings. It is long overdue for California's restriction on the ability of its citizens to purchase modern handguns meet its fate of being relegated to the pages of history, he went on to say. SAF founder and executive vice president Alan Gottlieb said, quote, "We're delighted with the ruling and we expect a satisfactory resolution from the April 14th telephone conference. California's handgun roster requirements were deliberately designed to frustrate the sale of modern handguns in the state and make it virtually impossible for Golden State residents to fully exercise their rights under the Second Amendment, which was incorporated to the states by the 2010 Supreme Court's McDonald ruling," end quote. One of California's most aggressive gun restrictions didn't fare as well this week, though. While the state has decided to appeal the decision against its Unsafe Handgun Act, it explicitly did not ask for its microstamping requirement to remain in effect during that appeal. That's a significant signal the state doesn't expect it will be able to convince even the Ninth Circuit of the restriction's viability.
All right. I'm going to go
You
ahead
go
and lead
first,
off
Paul.
here. Okay, I'm going to lead off on this one then. And I'm going to say this. No, today you cannot go buy a Gen 5 Glock in California. I expect it will happen very soon. My understanding is, from various news reports that I've read, that the state attorney for California, Bob Bonta, has said that he's not going to appeal the microstamping portion. And the microstamping portion will go away. That just leaves the magazine disconnect and the, what was the other one? Loaded chamber indicator. And so the what you can buy will soon go up, but I wouldn't expect it next week. I wouldn't expect it, honestly, for about a year or so while things work their way through. John, what do you think, man?
Well, I was just going to make the point about the microstamping not going to be appealed, so that was the only thing I was going to say.
All right.
Well, I've got a question then. What about my understanding is that California had written into their law not only all these ridiculous 2013 and older gun whatevers, but that if they put a new gun on the list, 2 had to come off. And so what about that? Is that also going away, or is that going to come back to bite them?
I would imagine that's going to come back and bite them. I am not a lawyer. I do not play one on TV or on this show. So this Friday is Alex Uli's Friday on the Bullet. I would tune in.
Better add that to the ask.
Yes.
Shall I text it to you as a question?
I'm actually
so you'll remember.
As soon as we go dark, I'm going to start working on Alex's list of questions. So anyway, yeah, Carrie, you want to chime in on this? You're not California there, but you're not far away. Massachusetts is not exactly free America.
That's all I can say. No, it's not. It's ridiculous. I don't understand how taking away something's going to make society safer. It just doesn't make any sense to me. And I have this argument all the time, but
Well, and Amanda,
take it all away.
We've done this before, Amanda. You are an engineer. You spend a significant part of your engineering career working on stamping metals. Could you explain really quickly why microstamping cannot, and most likely with current and any foreseeable technology in the future, ever work?
Well, it's because the stamps themselves, if you think about it, they have to be a raised portion that is in the shape of a number, and when it's on the firing pin, look at how little the firing pin is. I mean, when they're like, oh yeah, well you can use a laser, you can write on a grain of rice. Well, you can, but write on something and then stamp it on a grain of rice each time and see if it's legible. So when you're stamping things like car parts and you're putting in VIN numbers or serial numbers, look at the stuff that's in or under your car that's got a number on it, and see how truly legible it is, and then look at how big it is, because it is a number that is generally in the stamping world anywhere from 1/4 to 3/8 of an inch big in letter height. And we work diligently to keep the numbers sharp enough that you can read them, and so you've got good, viable numbers. This is going to be, the word micro is in there for a reason, so it will not be robust enough to maintain legibility.
My understanding, the last time I really dug into this, was microstamping worked for about a magazine. And when you changed mags and you went to another mag, the microstamping was just not legible. It looked like a regular firing pin strike.
Yeah.
So, let's see here. And Susan is not back at her desk yet, so I think I'm just going to take this next one. This is SAF wins against Minnesota in carry ban for 18 to 20-year-old citizens. This, again, is a Second Amendment Foundation press release. This came out Friday. A federal judge in Minnesota on Friday struck down a state restriction limiting handgun carry permits to those ages over 21. In a case brought by the Second Amendment Foundation, citing Second Amendment guidelines in last year's Supreme Court Bruin ruling, the case is known as Worth versus Harrington. In her decision, U.S. District Judge Catherine Menendez wrote, the Supreme Court's recent decision in New York State's Rifle and Pistol Association versus Bruin compels the conclusion that Minnesota's permitting age restriction is unconstitutional, and plaintiffs are entitled to a judgment as a matter of law. Later, in her 50-page ruling, Menendez observes the court concludes that the text of the Second Amendment includes within the right to keep and bear arms 18 to 20-year-olds, and therefore the Second Amendment presumptively guarantees the plaintiffs' right to bear arms for self-defense. Menendez's ruling is a huge victory for young adults and their right to keep and bear arms, said SAF founder and executive vice president Alan Gottlieb. Furthermore, her decision underscores the importance of last year's Supreme Court ruling in the Bruin case, which rightfully did away with the so-called balancing test that invariably weighed in favor of government interests over individual rights. Judge Menendez has firmly established that young adults are entitled to all the rights protected by the Constitution. Today's decision confirms what we already knew to be true, that 18 to 20-year-olds possess the same right to bear arms for self-defense as those over the age of 21, added Executive Director Adam Kraut. We are pleased that the court has enjoined the state of Minnesota from infringing on the rights of young adults. SAF will continue to work in the courts to vindicate the rights of all Americans. I'm telling you guys, the Bruin decision, the gift that keeps on.
Yep, I love it.
Exactly. I think that the one thing that folks need to see or realize is that when Adam Kraut came onto SAF on as their executive director, that one of his major focuses and missions was to restore rights to 18 to 21-year-olds and to really focus in that direction. And he has been extremely successful. So successful that if you have an 18 to 21-year-old in your world, SAF accepts donations. So SAF.org and go and throw them a 20 because it's going to change their lives.
It is. Throw in a 20 for a 20-year-old. I like that.
That's right. Yep. Yeah, now they need to change it so they can carry in colleges, protect themselves.
Yes.
Well, West Virginia just did.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah. So, again, brewing.
Yep. Love it.
Absolutely. Let's this next one. Susan is back, but I'm going to take this just simply because the story is the headline. The pistol purchase permit is officially dead in North Carolina. If you want a handgun, you no longer have to go to the sheriff and say, "Mother, may I?" And that law that became law as soon as the veto was overridden last week. I think the veto override was on Tuesday of last week, right, John?
Yes. Yes. The veto was on Friday. The Senate overrode it on Monday. The House did it on Tuesday. And the override in the Senate was a given. Republicans had the supermajority. The House, it took some work. I mean, all the Republicans had to be there, plus you need to either have one Democrat that would vote to override, or have at least two Democrats absent to take a walk. And as it was, there were 3 Democrats given excused absences, and they're getting all sorts of hell now. However, one was in the hospital because she has had COVID 3 times and has long COVID. Another guy was in urgent care. And the third guy, who took a walk, actually had proposed the bill early on and then backed away from it. This was his way of voting for it without quite going against the governor. But what also the bill did is not just throw out the Jim Crow pistol purchase permit after 104 years. It now also allows churches with attached private schools to have volunteer armed church security teams while the students are not there. We call that the church security loophole. That got closed. So that was not as, they were both important. Let's just put it that way.
So John, in your state, in North Carolina, is your governor a Democrat and your lieutenant governor a Republican?
Yes, that's correct. They're elected separately.
Roy Cooper, talk about that for a second, because most states do not have that. Weirdo.
Hey, we've had open carry by law since 1922. I'm just going to say that. No, the governor, every member of the Council of State, governor, lieutenant governor, district attorney general, superintendent of public instruction is elected separately. The governor and the lieutenant governor do not run as a ticket. They run separately. Roy Cooper was elected in 2018. We had a Republican lieutenant governor then who ran against Cooper ran against Cooper in 2020. And it was really kind of weird because Trump won, Tom Tillis won as a GOP for U.S. Senate, Mark Robinson, Republican, won, but somehow Roy Cooper won. A little shady there. But he is now term limited. He's got 2 years left. This was the first time he had been overridden in a veto, period.
So, is Mark Keith Robinson going to be your next governor?
He will be announcing, I think, the latter part of the month, or maybe next week. I can't say he'll be the next governor. It's going to be tight. The 2 Republicans will probably be the state treasurer and Mark Robinson. On the Democratic side, the attorney general has thrown his hat in the ring, who's a Democrat. and anti-gun.
Well, and I don't mean to belabor this over a course of a week, but on Saturday I mentioned if I remember right, it's the Mecklenburg County Sheriff. The one that Mecklenburg is for Charlotte, or the largest portion of Charlotte, at least.
It's all Charlotte, yeah.
Okay. The Mecklenburg County Sheriff, when he was getting pistol purchase permits, didn't matter if you served in the military or not. He sent off for your records to the VA, and he wouldn't give you a pistol purchase permit until the VA got back to him. So if you never served in the military, you were waiting 14, 16,
Forever.
18 months.
Grassroots, North Carolina had a sue on that.
Yeah.
We also have a suit against him on carry permits for that same reason. And that case is ongoing and is actually being supported also by GOA.
Very cool. Very cool. All right. Well, Susan, I see you're back in your chair there, back at the desk. You want to take us to Delaware and tell us what happened there? I don't want to go to Delaware. Just tell us what happened there.
You don't want to go to Delaware? I've always wanted to visit Delaware.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Delaware's assault weapons ban and magazine capacity limit can remain in place, according to a ruling handed down on Monday. Federal District Judge Richard G. Andrews, an Obama appointee, found the state's ban on AR-15s, AK-47s, and similar firearms is consistent with the Second Amendment. He ruled the same way on the state's ban on large-capacity magazines, LCMs, which the state defined as any magazine that holds more than 17 rounds of ammunition. He decided the bans were constitutional despite finding that the guns and magazines they target are in common use for self-defense. I conclude that the prohibited LCMs, like the prohibited assault long guns, are in common use for self-defense and therefore presumptively protected by the Second Amendment, Judge Andrews wrote in his opinion. Instead, Judge Andrews said this gun and magazines prohibited by Delaware represent a, quote, dramatic technological change and unprecedented societal concerns for public safety, end quote. Wow. Because semi-automatic firearms were not popular before the 20th century and have been used in high-profile mass shootings. He argued that meant Delaware only needed to show a tradition of regulating handguns in a similar, though not identical way, under the standards set in the Supreme Court's New York State Rifle and Pistol Association v. Bruin decision. He pointed to late 19th and early 20th century ban on Bowie knives, billy clubs, and concealed pistols as acceptable analogs.
I got one word, 1791.
Yeah, this is going to get overturned, and I titled this one "Temporary Loss in Delaware" because it is going to be temporary. As soon as the appellate court gets a hold of it, bye-bye.
Mm-hmm. That's crazy.
Anybody else want to chime in?
Yeah, I think the Fourth Circuit is looking at Maryland's law already and about ready to bounce it. Delaware, I believe, is in the Third Circuit, so they could be good, they could be bad. There's good parts and there's bad parts to the Third Circuit.
Sure. All right. Let's go ahead. Let's move forward to Nebraska. They were trying hard to become number 26. Sorry, folks. Florida beat you.
You snooze, you lose.
All right. Go ahead.
The Nebraska legislature wrapped up the second of three debates LB 77 must go through to get passed. Only one more debate remains. This debate should happen this coming week, and as with the other two debates, the other side is threatening to filibuster the bill. Because of Nebraska rules, I do not expect the third debate to be filled with drama. It's limited to 2 hours. This could be the very first bill the new governor signs.
Yeah, the Nebraska legislature is not, and this was true as of yesterday. The Nebraska legislature has not sent any legislation to their new governor, period. It looks like permitless carry may be the very first bill they send out. And Governor Noem, my governor here in South Dakota, the very first bill she signed was permitless carry. And I hope Nebraska's governor gets the same thing to do that. Gets to do the same thing. John, what do you think?
Well, I hope so as well, because I understand he's very pro-gun, as was his predecessor. And it looks like South Carolina might turn out to be number 28. Their House passed it, I'm just going to use round numbers, 90-30, and have sent it to the Senate, where it is now in committee, to the state Senate. If they pass it, then that'll be the 28th state, and I would fully expect Republican Governor Henry McMaster, who has got the world's best Southern accent. Ha, I am Henry McMaster. That kind of an accent. To sign it. So, anyway.
Well, and then Louisiana's talking too, right?
Yes. Louisiana has a bill active in their House right now.
Okay, so currently... So currently it's Nebraska, South Carolina, Louisiana. Is that it?
We have a bill in North Carolina that hasn't been acted on yet.
Okay. How about Massachusetts there, Carrie Ann?
You gotta love Mass. That's all I can say. I'm gonna move over to you guys.
You gotta
Free
love,
America.
only if you're Catholic do you have to love Mass. Okay.
Or I'll go back to maybe go to New Hampshire.
All right, let's get a comment in here real quick. Gun websites. Question, is John assuming Nebraska's number 27? If I were a betting man, I'd bet heavily that Nebraska is going to be number 27.
Yeah, I am assuming it. Yes.
All right. And then Big John 410 wants to remind us that Delaware is in the third, same as New Jersey and Pennsylvania. So let's go ahead and Susan, we got one more story here to wrap up the news, and this is about a friend of ours, a friend of everybody on the show. You want to go ahead and jump into this?
Hello. Rebecca's done a weekend bullet for us. She showed up in our news search Saturday morning. Paying for a license to carry a concealed firearm violates God-given rights, a House Republican argued during a tense discussion on gun law ethics this week. A day after a deadly mass shooting in Nashville, Tennessee, Representative Rebecca Schmoy, an Ottawa Republican, advocated for a bill reducing concealed carry licensing fees out of concern that lower-income Kansans cannot afford to pay them. Schmoy said it was wrong to have to pay to exercise a right, and that people who opposed the bill were discriminating based on finances. Quote, "It means that you do not believe in separate access to rights based upon income, and that low income need not apply. I urge you to stand for the rights that we are granted, our natural, God-given rights." End quote, Schmoy said.
I ran across this. I was doing my normal news search that I do just before the weekend bullet goes to air, and this was actually the very first story that came up on my news search on Saturday. And they had Rebecca's picture up there. I'm like, that's a familiar face. I better see what's going on here. And good on you, Rebecca. I don't think she's watching right now, but I'm hoping to get her back on either the Bullet or Polite Society in the very near future. And she's been doing a fantastic job. She went and got herself elected in her district in Kansas, and
That's awesome.
Yeah, I can't say enough good about Rebecca.
I'm just going to say she's a DC Project girl first. And part of Million Moms Against Gun Control. So she's extremely pro-gun, extremely active, and now represents Kansans.
Yeah. All right.
We need more people to run.
We do. All right. We are. We started a new segment. I haven't looked at clock. We're almost 90 minutes into this, and we've got a DGU segment. We're going to step aside for one more break. We're going to get through the DGUs, and we're going to do our regular show close all in the same segment. So we're going to take one more break. We'll come back. We'll do DGUs, and we'll shut down the show. Hang on, back right after this.
In 1928, Germany required its citizens to register their firearms, making possible Hitler's 1938 Nazi Weapons Act, disarming all Jews. Now ask yourself, what is the real consequence of registration? All in favor of gun control, raise your right hand. Brought to you by Jews for the Preservation of Firearms Ownership, America's aggressive civil rights organization. jpfo.org.
All right, we are back. This is the Defensive Gun Use segment of the Polite Society Podcast, the final segment today of the Polite Society Podcast, presented by the Second Amendment Foundation. As we get into this, I want to remind you, these discussions are not legal advice. Some of us are trainers, but this is not formal training. This is not formal training, and you need formal training. This segment is intended as information, not as training, and as always, the opinions of the hosts are only their own opinions and not those of any sponsors or other affiliations. Susan, our first one is out of, well, it's where the NRA annual meetings were last year, out of Houston. Tell us about it.
Food trucks have become the hottest epicureal trend. Not the old roach coach with the tuna and egg salad sandwiches and bottles of Coke on ice. Cassandra Howard Turner's family owns a food truck serving soul food in the parking lot off South Main at Fondren. They have been there since 2020. Oxtail, burgers, pork chops, and all the fixins. At about 1 p.m., a man pulled up and asked what they served. Turner showed him, and the man pulled a gun and got out of his truck. She closed the window, but he was able to open it and put his arm in the truck and pointed the gun at her. He attempted to shoot her, but his gun jammed. Turner then shot the man several times. He collapsed about 50 feet away from the truck and was later pronounced dead at the scene. HDP investigators said nothing was taken from the truck, and they are looking to surveillance video in the area. Although Texas is a permitless carry state, Turner is licensed to carry. Turner's son said she would never have wanted to use her gun, but she didn't have a choice. Quote, "My mom is a great person, you know, good-hearted, looking out for everybody. She'd give the shirt off her back," end quote, Derek Howard said. In the 3 years that their food truck has been open in the parking lot, the family said they've never had a problem. But the grandmother was cooking in her food truck Tuesday when her worst fear came true. HDP reported that Turner had a panic attack after the shooting. She was taken to an area hospital for treatment. "She's a godly woman. That's why the gun jammed. Because God jam it," Howard said.
I wouldn't depend on the God jamming the gun every time. That's not a good plan. But it does
God is my self-defense plan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It does appear she was pogo, though. I mean, she had at least she had it there with her. So,
thank God.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Literally.
Yeah.
Any more we want to comment about here? All right.
It's just
glad she was armed.
Yeah.
Yeah, glad she was armed, and nobody wants to use their firearm. Nobody. But if you have to, then you do. And unfortunately, you have to deal with the aftermath of it too, because her going into a panic attack, I mean, poor thing,
Yeah, and let's talk about that for just a little bit. Amanda, you've been through the Masada U group training with me. He covers post-shooting aftermath quite heavily in his Mag 40 class.
Right.
And that's something I don't know if you go to a full-blown panic attack, but there are a lot of emotions that happen after a shooting.
Right. I could only imagine.
Right. Yeah.
So.
Because
I feel for her.
You just took a life. Yeah, you took a life. Regardless, it's still a life, and that's something that you have to work through. But it's
exactly.
You're not gone. You're not gone, and your family's not gone. But yeah,
right.
traumatic.
let's go ahead and let's move on to this next one. Then again, this kind of wow when I was going through show notes earlier today. We've got a defensive gun use out of New York City. Susan, you want to tell us about that one?
Alvin Bragg has been in the news quite a bit lately. The Soros-backed DA is being subpoenaed to appear before a House committee and has been soft on crime but has indicted a former president. An overnight parking garage attendant noticed a man peering into cars on the second floor of a West 31st Street garage at about 5:30 a.m. Believing the man was stealing, the attendant brought him outside and asked what he had in his bag. Rather than cooperating, the man pulled again. The attendant, Musa Daria, 57, tried to grab the gun and it went off. He was shot in the stomach and grazed in the ear by a bullet before he was able to turn the firearm on the would-be thief and shot him in the chest. Police have hit Daria with attempted murder, but it was not immediately clear if prosecutors would follow through with the charge. The initial charges sparked outrage, similar to the case of the Manhattan bodega clerk who defended himself with an angry customer, came behind the counter and attacked him. Family friend Mariam Daria, who is not related to the attendant, slammed the decision to hit the married dad of two with charges. That's self-defense. The guy tried to rob his business, she told the Post. He's there for security. That's literally his job, to defend his business. He takes his job seriously. Attempted murder charge has no place there. The robber came to find him at his job with his gun. He had to defend himself. The suspected thief, 59, was also charged with attempted murder, assault, and criminal possession of a weapon, as well as burglary, police said late Saturday. In an updated story, it appears that Bragg succumbed to public pressure once again and did the right thing. But Bragg will dismiss the case against Daria, pending further investigation, his office said. The charges remain standing against the criminal.
All right, John, you're first up in show notes, man. What do you think?
Well, number one, I think Bragg finally got some sense. Number two, I think Musa Diarra should never have been charged. Number three, do we really think the criminal who attacked him had a carry permit for that firearm? And we know the answer is hell no. Heck no.
Yeah. Or even a pistol purchase permit, which is still required in New York.
Right.
I'm going to say a defensive gun use is far easier to pull off if you have your own gun. Unfortunately, this is New York City, and this security officer had to rely on the defendant's gun. And two more things here real quick. One more thing here real quick. He was shot in the stomach. He was shot or in the abdomen. He got grazed on the ear. You're never out of the fight until you're unconscious or you stop breathing. One of the two. Amanda, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think the interesting thing with Bragg seems to be that he's pretty soft on crime, yet when someone overcomes a criminal and takes their weapon and uses it against them, he charges the victim. He charges the person that was the intended dead person that happened to overcome, happened to persevere, and he's got a history of it. He's done it multiple times. Two of them have hit the news that we're tracking. How many of them are we not tracking? How many of them have we missed? Have we not seen that are there? I think that this is a bigger history that he's got going on. Yes.
John 410, you're correct. He just commented this is the same Manhattan DA that is prosecuting Donald Trump this week. It absolutely is. And I think, honestly, this is both the Trump prosecution and the non-prosecution here are political. He's getting enough heat from this one that he's going, yeah, it's not going to further my political career if we go forward with it, even if I want to. And the Trump one is, we may not have a strong case but I'm going to go forward with it because I'm going to go forward with it because it will be good for me politically. I think.
Look, Mom, I'm famous.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Normally at this point I would ask Rob.
John's got another comment.
Oh.
Yeah, you brought up that he was shot and kept going, but look where he was shot. He was shot in the stomach.
Yep.
And that is a lesson in and of itself, because you can survive being shot in the stomach. If you're in a defensive shooting, you need to go for the critical triangle area, between the neck and the nipples, the heart, the lungs, etc. If you really want to stop somebody.
Yes.
Just somebody who's gut shot is still going to come after you, or could.
Absolutely.
Yep.
There's something John Correa says that I think is very pertinent. Fibs, fudge, I've been shot. That will a lot of times end the fight for the aggressor. For the defender, I've been shot, but I don't want to die.
Right.
So, normally at this point, I would say to Rob, what's up at your blog, Slowfax? And Rob's not here today. I believe he's in the southern hemisphere, and actually he's on the very eastern side of the southern hemisphere. Meaning, I think he's in New Zealand. So can't ask him that. I do encourage you to go to his slowfax.wordpress.com site. And John, what's been going on over at your blog, Only Guns and Money? I did see a post from you today.
Oh yeah, you've seen lots of posts. There's been plenty written. I'm going to start out with the murders at Covenant School in Nashville. The usual suspects are calling for accountability. And I agree. However, it is the killer who should be held accountable, and those who ensure that schools in Tennessee are gun-free zones. It isn't the gun. It isn't pro-rights politicians. And also, due to the killer's gender dysphoria, it really irritates me that the media is blaming everything and everyone but the killer. In better news, North Carolina got rid of our personal purchase permit effective immediately. We covered that a little earlier. I've got a number of posts up about that. And I also have a post up with the latest in Every Picture Tells a Story series, which I've had since 2011 on the blog. Now it does reflect Florida passing permitless carry. That and more is at onlygunsandmoney.com.
All right, and I'm going to get a comment up here because it goes directly to the next person I was going to throw to, and that's you, Carrie Ann. Gun Websites says, question for Carrie Ann, what is the topic of the next Sisters in Arms, a firearm story?
Okay, so we're actually going to be talking about the listening tours that's been happening here in Massachusetts, and we're going to be talking about the latest fashion show. So yeah, that's coming up, and I believe that's it right now. We might have a guest, but we're not sure if we're going to be able to get that person on. So, and and the next listening tour is going to be in Greenfield, Massachusetts. That's about 2 hours away from me, and it's about hunting and guns, which I have no idea what that's going to be about. It's going to be interesting.
Well, in talking to Charlie Cook, my understanding is it's more of a we're listening tour. It's not that. It's you need to be listening to us tour.
Yeah, it's the last one we went to was on domestic violence and gun prevention. It was absolutely crazy. And there was a lot of Moms Demand Actions there, a lot actually. And I got a chance to speak, and I was really excited about it because there was a young lady that was a domestic violence survivor, and she said, and I quote, "I was 110 pounds, and I feel as though if I had a gun, I would have died." And we all kind of held our breath and went, and so I got a chance to speak later, and I said to her, well, I didn't say it to her, I said it in general. I said, somebody made a comment about being 110 pounds, and when you put a firearm on a 110-pound woman, it creates an equalizer to a man that's 200 pounds that's trying to hurt you. And I was really excited about this because at the end, the panelists that were on there, someone approached me and said, that comment itself, I never even thought about that. And my husband has a firearm and a license, and that comment alone made me think maybe I should. So we're making a difference, even though that these listening tours about listen to me, like you said, I feel as though that the DC project is definitely getting recognized more and more, and people are listening. So I'm really excited about that. So
very cool.
Yeah.
And this is the point where you plug how people can get to your Sisters in Arms, how they can get
Find
to
your
that
show.
and all that good. Yeah, plug your show.
So it's Sisters in Arms, a firearm story. And we've had some amazing guests on too. We had Mike Sedini from Walk the Talk America. And so we're very, very fortunate and privileged to be able to have this opportunity. And so, yeah, check us out. And it's Sisters in Arms 2022 at gmail.com. If you have any questions, reach out.
Very cool. Amanda, do I need to call you Madam Director now?
No.
She needs to run for something next.
All right. Well, I was not available for yesterday's Eye on the Target radio broadcast, but tell everybody a little bit about what's going on there, what's coming up, whatever, and anything else you want to plug.
Well, what's really happening is Eye on the Target yesterday had where Joe Eaton was on tonight's show here. Jim Irvine was on Eye on the Target last night. And Carrie Ann, I'm going to suggest that you consider one of the faster folks at your show. Since Jim is an airline pilot, you may be able to schedule it so he comes to you. But
love it.
Just say
love it. I want him on.
So one of the things that we're doing with Faster is we're actually working with. If you looked, Senator Marsha Blackburn is talking about we ought to arm teachers. Somebody went after Lauren Boberg, and she's talking about Faster Colorado. There is an interest and a voice and words that are being said about hardening our schools and doing things, and so there is an opportunity for Faster on a much larger scale to be able to teach the things that they've been so successful at and teach them on a bigger scale. And so that's the hope that I've got, and I'm hoping that any influence that I've got, I can help them get a seat at the table to be able to save each and every one of our nation's children. So that's really. It's just that,
It's just that.
Just that.
All right. Well, I'm going to say that does wrap up another episode of the Second Amendment Foundation's Polite Society podcast. I'd like to thank Joe Eaton for joining us today. So for Amy, Dana, Tracy, John, Susan, Amanda, Robin, Charlie, Carrie Ann, and Rob.
Until the next time.
Stay safe.
Be aware.
And we'll see you down the road.
The views and opinions on the show you just heard are those of the host and the guest and are not necessarily the views of any sponsors or other affiliations. But hey, not everyone is as smart as we are.
Okay, the recording is finished. We're still live on the streams. We're only going to do, as usual, we're only going to do a minute or two post-recording. Do you want to get this up from Pete over at Gun Websites? He says, that's a great story. Way to use the tour to the advantage of the Second Amendment, referring to what you were saying, Carrie Ann.
Yeah.
Yep.
And,
yeah, it really is. We're now considered the blue shirts. So, Representative Michael Day actually said, "I'm gonna pick the woman in the back in the blue shirt." So we're not.
There you go. So you're not red shirts, which is good.
Nope.
There you go.
Teal. Yeah.
Feel.
All right. Everybody who's watching us on the live stream, thank you for watching. Thank you for contributing. A lot of great comments in tonight. And do come join us next Monday, 6 p.m. Central Time, for another edition of the Polite Society Podcast. And you can join me Tuesday through Friday this week at 6 p.m. Central Time as well for the Bullet. And then this Saturday we have a weekend Bullet coming as well at noon Central Time. Thanks again, everybody.